Now, Cosatu is calling for a nationwide stay away and protest tomorrow. It will form part of the activities around World Day of Decent Work. The Federation is demanding the end to austerity measures, wage freezes and job cuts at SOEs. John Botha from Global Business Solution has some advice for business on how to deal with the strike. He joins us now live for more details. John, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Just firstly, usually when this type of protest happens, we know that businesses are sometimes forced to shut down and not operate for that day, depending on how many people go out there and whether or not it's violent. What's your advice to them? Should they even open their doors tomorrow?
Thank you very much. Good day to you and the listeners. Yes, my advice would very much be to keep the doors open, but my advice is also to listen with empathy. These workers are under extreme pressure financially, economically. We just see what's trending now in the news that you've just referred to. So workers are hard pressed from all sides. And this is a time for us to listen with empathy, with understanding, rather to judge and to, cause division. So the Labour Relations Act is a mechanism for workers to use Section 77 so that they can embark on these lawful protests. That means they can't lose their jobs, but they will not be paid for their participation. So in terms of keeping businesses running, if we take a look at earlier this year when Cosatu had a similar stay away, the support was not quite what they were hoping for. And I would suspect that because employees don't want to lose more wages, and given the tough economic times, I don't think it will be very, very largely supported, but that remains to be seen.
And of course, even for business itself, it's quite important that government even hears workers, because sometimes you find that businesses can't, give to workers' demands of salary increases, etc., during this hard time because the economy is performing so badly.
You're absolutely correct. The economy is growing at about 0.6% per annum. The economic employment relationship in terms of employment growth is under massive strain. Companies are also hard pressed. But, the interesting thing is business and labor are standing together in many respects because corruption, inequality, crime, these types of matters really need to be addressed once and for all. Infrastructure matters. And even though businesses are not happy, obviously, with workers staying away, no one would dispute the fact that it's time now for action. And it's time to allow people to stand their ground and to demand that their rights and their dignity gets addressed. Unfortunately, sometimes this is the only way that it can take place with any significant meaning.
And I like that you use the word unfortunately, because a lot of people feel as though that's the only way that we're heard by government and other powerful people in decision-making positions, that we need to protest before we are actually heard. We can't just talk. But at the same time, businesses might respond to you and say, if we let our workers not come to work, it means no money is made for that particular day, and it will only make things worse for us and them.
Yes, absolutely. So, I think these times call for us to address these situations in a two-dimensional way. The first one is to communicate with employees, to ask what the levels of support appear to be, to try and look at potential replacement labor to keep the home fires burning. So communication, planning, and of course, multi-skilling, those types of activities are really increasingly important so that organizations can keep going. But on the other hand, companies need to create an environment of trust, in my view, because employees must be allowed to be vulnerable at the workplace. They must be allowed to participate in the stay away without fear of retribution and without fear of victimization, because it firstly is legal. NEDLAC were unable to achieve a settlement to these requests by the union. Therefore, they are fully acting within their constitutional rights. So employers need to take proactive measures, but at the same time, they need to create an environment of trustful vulnerability. That allows for healthy conflict. You know, where there's no trust, there's unhealthy conflict and fear and silence. That's not good either. I think employers need to take proactive steps, but at the same time, empathize with their staff and do what they can do and stand together in this regard. That is where trust needs to come from. And, you know, the latest research from the Edelman Foundation shows that South Africa is one of the top 6 most polarized economies and most polarized geographies in the world.
Yeah.
And the fundamental reason for that is exactly what we're talking about, mistrust between the social partners.
Definitely a trust deficit, not just with politicians and the people who voted them into power, but I think all around here in South Africa. John, thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us this afternoon. John Botha from Joint CEO, or rather Joint CEO of Global Business Solutions.